Rain fell like a funeral shroud over the Black Ridge territory that morning. Cold, relentless, the kind of rain that soaked through ceremonial robes and turned the sacred burial grounds into fields of mud. The sky hung low and gray, pressing down on the gathered pack as if the moon goddess herself disapproved of what was about to unfold. 200 wolves stood in human form, water streaming from faces both young and ancient, shoulders rigid despite the cold seeping into bones that knew better than to shift during a funeral rite. They were not here because they wanted to be. They were here because the Alpha commanded it, and pack law was absolute. At the center of the circle lay a body wrapped in traditional burial cloth. No pack honors, no ancestral markings, just gray fabric and the shell of a woman who had worn the title of Beta for 30 years before they stripped her of everything she had earned. Sarah Stone, traitor. That was the official designation now, branded across her legacy in letters that would echo through pack history. Exiled 6 months before her death, convicted of conspiring with rival packs to undermine territorial sovereignty. The evidence had been presented to the Council of Elders. Communications with enemy alphas, meetings at forbidden borders, testimony from 3 witnesses who swore they had seen her Jiao passing intelligence. The council had been efficient in their judgment, as they always were when betrayal struck close to pack leadership. Marcus Iron stood at the head of the circle, rainwater pooling in the hollow of his throat, where his pulse beat steady and strong. 44 years old, 25 of them spent as Alpha of the Black Ridge Pack. His face was carved from the same stone as the mountains that bordered their territory, jaw set like granite, eyes the color of winter storms that promised violence to anyone who threatened what was his. They called him the Iron Alpha, and the name fit. In 3 territorial wars, he had never broken, never retreated, never left a pack member behind to enemy wolves. His word was law within these forests, his decisions respected without question. Until now. Because what he was about to do would test every ounce of authority he had built over 2 decades of leadership. The pack shaman finished the obligatory words, voice barely audible over the drumming rain. Protocol demanded a burial for any wolf who died on pack lands, even disgraced ones. Protocol did not demand respect for the dead, not when the dead died in shame. As the shaman stepped back, the gathered wolves remained motionless. No howl of mourning, no shift to wolf form to honor the fallen, just silence and the hiss of water on earth. Marcus stepped forward. Every eye in the pack tracked him. He could feel the tension rippling through his wolves, bodies shifting weight from foot to foot, uncertain what their alpha intended. The council had been clear in their instructions. Bury her. Do not honor her. Make an example of what happens to those who betray the pack bond. He stopped beside the body, one hand resting on the wet fabric of the burial cloth. For a long moment he stood there, rain washing over him, memories flickering through his mind like scenes from a life he could not close the door on. Sarah Stone screaming orders during the Blackwood Territory battle, while enemy wolves tore at their flanks. Sarah pulling him aside after his first failed challenge, telling him that good alphas learn from their mistakes, while great alphas make sure their pack survives those mistakes long enough to learn. Sarah handing him the alpha mantle 20 years ago when his father fell, her voice steady and certain as Beta supporting the pack transition. You will do right by them, Marcus. That is all any of us can do. The rain intensified, turning the burial ground into a shallow lake. Wolves stood ankle-deep in water, waiting. Marcus raised his right hand, fingers spreading wide. The gesture was unmistakable to anyone who understood pack law. The salute reserved for fallen pack members, for those who had given everything in service to the territory. His arm locked at a perfect angle, crisp despite the rain, despite the weight of what this simple gesture meant. The pack erupted in whispers. Shock rippled through the circle like electricity through water. Protocol shattered. Council orders defied. The elders would hear of this within the hour. But Marcus held the salute, eyes fixed on the burial cloth, and his voice carried across the grounds with the authority of an alpha who had commanded wolves through hell and brought them home. She earned this. 30 years of service does not vanish because of what came after. Whatever the council believes she did, whatever evidence they claim to possess, Sarah Stone bled for this territory. She lost pack members and carried that weight. She made the hard calls when no one else would. That service is real. That sacrifice is real. I will not dishonor it. He lowered his hands slowly, deliberately. Then he turned to the gathered wolves and gave the order that would echo through the pack for weeks to come. Shift. Honor the fallen. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. The pack stood frozen, human forms rigid with disbelief, eyes wide with the enormity of what their alpha demanded. Then Ronan Flint, Marcus's beta, made his choice. The massive male dropped to all fours as bones cracked and reformed, as skin gave way to thick brown fur scarred from 100 territorial battles. His wolf form rose on powerful legs, one eye missing, but the remaining amber orb burning with loyalty that transcended council politics. He threw his head back and howled, the sound rolling across the territory like thunder. The rest of the pack followed. 200 wolves shedding human skin, becoming the creatures they truly were. A chorus of howls split the air, voices joining in a harmony that spoke of pack bonds and shared grief and the understanding that some things mattered more than political maneuvering. It was a sound that transcended words, a sound that said this wolf was pack and pack honored their own. When the howling faded, Marcus shifted. His wolf was larger than any other in the circle, black as midnight, with silver-gray markings at his muzzle and ears that matched the gray threading through his human hair. The alpha wolf stood over Sarah's body for one moment longer, then raised his own voice in a solitary howl that carried the weight of command and loss, and a promise made to a dying beta. I will protect what you left behind. As the pack began to shift back to human form, Marcus's wolf head lifted, nostrils flaring. Through the rain and mud and gathered wolves, a scent hit him like a physical blow, sweet and wild and utterly foreign. Not pack, not territory, but carrying underneath it all a hint of something that made his wolf surge forward with recognition that transcended logic. Mate. His eyes tracked to the tree line where observers stood at the edge of the sacred grounds. Humans, mostly. Family of pack members who had not yet earned their wolves. A few elder wolves too weak to stand in the rain. And there, half hidden beneath the dripping branches of an old pine tree, a figure in a dark coat stood watching. Hood pulled low against the rain, shoulders hunched, face obscured by shadow. But Marcus knew who it was. Would have recognized that posture anywhere, even without the scent that was currently driving his wolf into a frenzy of need. The way she held herself apart from others, isolated even in a crowd. The subtle tension in her frame, ready to move, ready to fight or flee at a moment's notice. Kira Stone, 35 years old, Sarah's daughter. Human, as far as anyone in the pack knew. She had left Black Ridge Territory at 18, joined the human military, spent 15 years in their wars before a dishonorable discharge sent her back to the forests where she had been born. The official report claimed she had abandoned her post, resulting in the deaths of soldiers under her command. She had not contested the charges, had not defended herself. She had simply accepted the discharge, turned in her uniform, and disappeared into the wilderness beyond pack borders. And now she stood in the rain, watching them bury her mother, watching Marcus defy the council to honor a traitor. And his wolf was screaming mine with a ferocity that threatened to override every shred of control Marcus had built over 4 decades of life. He forced the shift back to human form, forced his body to remember skin and bones instead of fur and fangs. Forced himself to stand there dripping and naked in the rain as pack members handed him clothes, as Ronan appeared at his shoulder with questions in his one good eye. "She came," Ronan said quietly, his voice still rough from the shift. "Sarah's daughter." Marcus nodded, not trusting himself to speak. The mate bond was a myth for most wolves. Rare, 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000. Most wolves chose partners based on compatibility and strength and political advantage, but mate bonds, when they did happen, were absolute, undeniable. The wolf recognizing the other half of its soul in a way that transcended thought or choice. And Marcus's wolf had just recognized Kira Stone, human daughter of a traitor, as his mate. This was going to be a problem. The ceremony ended. The pack dispersed, wolves moving quickly toward the shelter of their dens, grateful to escape the rain and the uncomfortable weight of what they had just witnessed. Marcus remained, watching the burial detail finish their work, watching the mud swallow Sarah's body inch by inch. By the time he looked back toward the pine tree, Kira Stone was gone. 3 days passed before Marcus made his move. 3 days of fielding questions from the council, 3 days of pointed inquiries about his defiance of protocol, 3 days of carefully worded explanations that danced around the simple truth. He had given the order because it was right, and he would give it again. The council was not pleased. But the council was also 300 miles south in the capital den, far from the realities of territory life, far from the daily grind of holding the northern borders against rival packs that grew bolder with each passing month. They could register their displeasure. They could not remove him. Not yet. Not while his pack would follow him into hell without question. Not while his territorial record remained spotless in every other regard. So Marcus endured the bureaucratic punishment, signed the required statements of acknowledgement, and moved forward with what mattered. Finding Kira Stone. She was not difficult to locate. The territories beyond the pack borders were vast, but they were also Marcus's domain. He knew every village, every outpost, every hidden trail that wound through these forests. He knew the people who lived on the fringe, the hunters and trappers and guides who made their living in the spaces between pack lands and human civilization. And he knew that Kira had not gone far, could not go far, because people like her, people raised with pack structure, even if they never shifted, did not adapt well to the chaos of truly human existence. They drifted to the edges, finding work that used their skills without demanding they integrate back into the world they had lost. The Tracker's Lodge sat 12 miles northwest of Black Ridge Territory, a rough-hewn structure built into the side of a ravine where the forest grew thick and dark. It served as a waypoint for hunters and a hiring post for anyone who needed a guide through the dangerous country beyond pack patrols. Marcus drove alone, his truck picking its way carefully down the muddy trail, engine rumbling in the cold morning air. He found her splitting wood behind the lodge, her axe rising and falling with mechanical precision. Each strike split the logs clean. No wasted motion, no hesitation. She had always been efficient. That much had not changed. Kira did not look up when he parked, did not acknowledge his presence, even though she certainly heard his approach, certainly scented him. She simply continued working, the axe biting deep into the wood, muscles moving beneath the worn fabric of her work shirt. Marcus watched for a moment, his wolf pushing against his control with demands that were becoming harder to ignore. Up close, the mate scent was overwhelming, sweet and wild with an undertone of something ancient, something that did not quite match human. His wolf wanted to shift, wanted to claim, wanted to press her against the nearest tree and mark her throat until every wolf for miles knew she was his. He forced the thoughts down and spoke instead, keeping his voice level despite the chaos raging inside him. "I have a job offer for you." Now she looked up, dark brown eyes meeting his, and Marcus felt the impact like a physical blow. Beautiful. Not in the delicate way of wolves who spent their lives preening for status. Beautiful in the way of storms and wildfire, in the way of things that could kill you if you were not careful. 35 years old with a face that had seen too much, survived too much, weathered into something fierce and unbreakable. "Not interested," she said, her voice exactly as he remembered. Direct, no softening, no social niceties, just truth delivered like a blade. "You have not heard the terms yet." "Does not matter. I work alone." She turned back to the wood, dismissing him with the kind of casual disrespect that would have gotten any pack member hauled before him for discipline. His wolf snarled at the rejection. Marcus ignored it. "Your mother asked me to look after you." The axe stopped mid-swing. For a long moment, Kira stood frozen, blade buried in a half-split log, shoulders rigid with tension that spoke of barely controlled emotion. Then she pulled the axe free with a sharp tug and turned to face him fully. "My mother is dead." "Yes." "Because your council branded her a traitor." "Yes." "And you stood at her funeral and honored her anyway." Kira's eyes narrowed, studying him with an intensity that made Marcus's skin prickle with awareness. "Why?" "Because she earned it." "That is not an answer." "It is the only answer I have." Marcus stepped closer, closing the distance between them, and watched her body tense like a wild animal, deciding whether to fight or flee. Whatever the council believes she did, whatever evidence they presented, Sarah Stone served this pack for 30 years. She was my beta, my friend, and before she died, she asked me to make sure you were safe. I am safe, as you can see. Kira gestured to the lodge, the forest, the isolation. "No one bothers me out here." Fenris Shadowmaw is gathering forces on the eastern border. The name hit her like a slap. Marcus saw the recognition flare in her eyes, saw her hand tighten on the axe handle until her knuckles went white. What does that have to do with me? Her voice was carefully controlled now, too controlled. You tell me. Marcus kept his eyes on hers, reading the tells that humans thought they could hide, but wolves could see clear as day. The elevated pulse at her throat, the slight widening of her pupils, the way her scent shifted from neutral to something sharper, something afraid. Fenris has been asking questions about your family, about your mother's bloodline, about you. I have not been Pack in 17 years. Whatever business Fenris has, it is not with me. Then why did Sarah spend the last year of her life trying to hide you? The question hung in the air like a blade. Kira stared at him, and Marcus watched the careful control crack just slightly. Saw the flash of uncertainty, of fear not quite buried deep enough. I do not know what you are talking about. Yes, you do. Marcus took another step closer, and this time she held her ground. This close! The mate bond was screaming at him, his wolf clawing at his control with the need to touch her, to confirm she was real. Whatever your mother discovered, whatever she was trying to protect you from, it got her killed. And if Fenris is asking about you now, that means the threat is not over. So what? You are offering to protect me? Kira laughed, bitter and sharp. I do not need protection, Alpha. I have been taking care of myself for a long time. I am not offering protection. I am offering a job. Marcus forced himself to step back, to give her space even though his wolf howled in protest. I need a tracker. Someone who knows these forests, who can move through enemy territory without being detected. Someone with military training and no official pack ties. The pay is good, room and board included, and you will be under my personal protection while in Black Ridge territory. You want me to come back to Pack lands? I want to hire your skills for a contract job. Why me? There are other trackers. Because you are the best. Because you know how wolves think even if you cannot shift. And because your mother's last words to me were an oath to keep you safe. I intend to honor that oath. Kira studied him for a long moment, her dark eyes searching his face for lies or ulterior motives. Marcus let her look, keeping his expression neutral, even though his wolf was currently painting very detailed mental images of what honoring that oath could involve if she would just let him get close enough to mark her properly. Finally she spoke. If I say yes, it is contract work. I am not Pack. I do not follow Pack law. I do not answer to your council. You answer to me. As long as you are working this contract, you are under my authority. And when the job is done, you walk away, no strings, no obligations. He was lying, of course. The mate bond was already a string, a chain, a tether that would follow her to the ends of the earth if necessary. But she did not need to know that yet. Did not need to know that the moment she set foot in his territory, every instinct Marcus possessed would be screaming at him to claim her, to mark her, to bind her to him in ways that went far deeper than any contract. 1 week, Kira said. I will give you 1 week. If this job is not what you say, I walk. Fair enough. And I want payment in advance. Half now, half when the contract ends. Done. Marcus pulled a leather pouch from his jacket and tossed it to her. She caught it one-handed, the weight of gold coins inside satisfying solid. You can start today. Pack your things and meet me at the northern border in 2 hours. What is the job? Marcus smiled, and it was not a nice expression. Fenris has an observation post hidden somewhere in the eastern forest. My scouts cannot find it. You are going to track it down and report back its exact location. Just track it, not eliminate? Not yet. First we learn what he is watching. Then we decide what to do about it. Kira nodded slowly, already calculating approach vectors and cover patterns like the soldier she had been. Fine. 2 hours. Marcus turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. What? Welcome home, Kira Stone. He was gone before she could respond, before she could throw the axe at his head like her expression suggested she wanted to. But as he drove away, Marcus could see her in his rearview mirror, standing in the clearing with his gold in her hand and confusion written all over her face. His wolf was smug with satisfaction. She was coming home. That was step 1. Everything else could wait, for now. But not for long, because the mate bond was patient, but Marcus's control was not infinite. And every hour she spent in his territory would make it harder to pretend this was just a contract between Alpha and employee. Sooner or later, she would feel it too, the pull, the need, the certainty that she belonged to him just as surely as he belonged to her. And when that happened, there would be no more hiding, no more pretending, just the mate bond demanding what it was owed. Marcus looked forward to that day with anticipation that bordered on feral. 2 hours later, Kira Stone stood at the northern border with a pack on her back and suspicion in her eyes. She had changed into tactical clothes, dark grays and greens that would blend with the forest, but kept the worn look of someone who trusted function over appearance. Her hair was pulled back in a practical braid, face free of any enhancement beyond the natural beauty she seemed completely unaware of. Marcus met her with Ronan at his side. His beta assessed her with his one good eye, taking in the military posture, the way she scanned the tree line with professional caution, the hand that never strayed far from the knife at her belt. "This is her?" Ronan asked quietly. "This is Sarah's daughter." Marcus kept his voice neutral, giving nothing away. "She will be working as our tracker for the duration of this contract. The pack will not like an outsider on territory. The pack will follow my orders." Ronan grunted acknowledgement, but his eye held questions. Marcus ignored them. His beta was loyal, would support him no matter what. But explaining the mate bond would require explanations Marcus was not ready to give. Not yet. Not until he understood what Kira was and why his wolf recognized her as mate when every instinct said she was human. Because humans could not be mates, not really. The bond required wolf-to-wolf recognition, soul-to-soul connection. Humans might be taken as partners, might be turned through bite if their constitution allowed it. But mate bonds were reserved for pack members, for those who carried wolf spirit in their blood. And yet here Marcus stood, fighting the overwhelming urge to grab Kira and bury his face in her throat and breathe in that impossible scent until he could think straight again. "Ready?" he asked her. Kira nodded, shouldering her pack. "What are the rules?" "Stay within sight of pack escorts at all times. No wandering off alone. If you find the observation post, you report back immediately. Do not engage. Do not let yourself be seen. And if I run into Fenris's wolves, then you run, fast, and you howl for backup." "I cannot howl." "Then you scream, 'My wolves will hear you and come.'" Kira's eyes narrowed. "How do you know I will not just take your gold and disappear into the forest?" "Because you honor contracts. And because deep down, you want to know what your mother died protecting." The words hit their mark. Kira's expression shuddered, but not before Marcus saw the flash of pain quickly buried. She turned toward the forest without another word and started walking. Marcus followed, his wolf surging forward with satisfaction. She was in his territory now, under his protection, close enough that he could scent her with every breath, close enough that his wolf could fantasize about all the ways they could claim her once this contract was done, and she understood what she really was. Patience, he reminded himself, and control. Two things alphas were supposed to excel at. Two things that were currently being tested by a woman who had no idea she was his mate. This was going to be a long week. They moved through the forest in silence, Kira taking point with Marcus and Ronan flanking her at a distance. She moved well for a human, Marcus noted. Better than well. She moved like a wolf, reading terrain and cover with instincts that should not come naturally to someone without pack training. She avoided obvious trails, stayed in cover, and left minimal tracks. After 3 hours of steady travel, she raised a hand. "Stop." Her voice was barely a whisper. Marcus and Ronan froze instantly. Ahead, Kira crouched low, her eyes scanning the canopy. "There." She pointed to a cluster of trees about 200 yards northeast. "You see the way those branches are arranged? Too neat." Someone cleared sightlines. Marcus looked. Saw nothing unusual at first. Then his wolf vision engaged and he caught it. The subtle manipulation of natural growth. The cleared fields of fire. The perfect vantage point over the valley that led to Black Ridge's northern settlements. "That is it," he said quietly. "Fenris's observation post." "3 guards," Kira reported, her eyes tracking movement Marcus had not yet seen. 1 in the main hide, 2 more positioned as sentries. Rotating watch pattern suggests at least 2 more that cycle through. Professional setup. "How do you see all that?" "I spent 15 years doing this." Kira glanced back at him, something challenging in her expression. "Just because I cannot shift does not mean I am useless at reconnaissance." "I never said you were, but you thought it." "I thought you were well trained, and I was right." For just a moment, surprise flickered across her face. Then she turned back to the observation post, all business again. "You want me to map their positions and watch rotations?" "Yes. 3 days of observation. I need to know their patterns, their weak points, their blind spots. 3 days means camping in hostile territory, which is why I will be staying with you." Kira's head whipped around. "Excuse me? You think I am going to leave you out here alone with Fenris's wolves within howling distance? Not happening. I work better alone, and I do not leave pack members exposed. I am not pack. You are under my protection. Same thing." Kira opened her mouth to argue, then seemed to think better of it. "Fine. But I lead, you follow, and you do not interfere with my work." "Agreed." They established a hide 300 yards from the observation post, close enough to observe but far enough to avoid detection. Ronan returned to pack territory to coordinate defenses, leaving Marcus alone with Kira in the forest as twilight settled over the trees. This was a terrible idea. Marcus knew it the moment Ronan disappeared from sight, and he was left in a small hide with a woman his wolf recognized as mate. The scent was overwhelming this close, sweet and wild and laced with something that made his canines ache to extend. His wolf was pacing inside his mind, demanding he do something, claim something, mark her throat and make it clear to every wolf in these territories that she was his. But Kira was oblivious. She was too focused on the observation post, tracking guard movements with professional intensity, making notes in a small field journal with quick, efficient strokes. "You are good at this," Marcus said quietly. "I told you I was." "Why did they discharge you?" The question made her hand stop mid-notation. She did not look at him. "Does it matter? You spent 15 years serving. That kind of service does not end in dishonor without cause. They said I abandoned my post, that soldiers died because I was not there." "And did you?" Kira was quiet for a long time. Then she closed the journal and finally met his eyes. "There was an ambush. My unit was pinned down. I made a call to flank the enemy position. The maneuver worked. We eliminated the threat. But command said I broke formation, that my orders were to hold position and I disobeyed. So you saved lives and got punished for it. I broke the rules. And if you had followed the rules, everyone would have died, including me. Then you made the right call." Command did not see it that way. Command was wrong. Marcus held her gaze, letting her see the certainty in his eyes. Sometimes the right decision is not the one that follows the rules. Sometimes it is the one that keeps your people alive. Kira blinked, something shifting in her expression. "That sounds like something my mother would say." Sarah was a good beta. She understood that leadership meant making hard choices. "Is that why you honored her at the funeral? Because you believe she made a hard choice even if the council called it treason?" "I honored her because she earned it. Whatever she did it believing it was right. And I trust that judgment more than I trust political maneuvering, even if it cost her everything, especially then. The wolves willing to sacrifice everything for what they believe are the ones worth following." Kira studied him for a long moment, and Marcus felt the weight of her assessment. She was trying to figure him out, trying to understand why an alpha would risk his position to honor a traitor's funeral. What she did not know was that the answer was sitting right in front of her. He had honored Sarah because Sarah was his mate's mother, because the oath he swore to protect Kira was not just pack duty. It was mate bond imperative coded so deep in his DNA that defying it would be like defying gravity. But he could not tell her that, not yet, not until he understood what she was and why the mate bond recognized someone who carried no wolf scent. "Thank you," Kira said finally, "for honoring her. Regardless of your reasons, it meant something." "You are welcome." They fell into silence after that, watching the observation post as darkness settled fully over the forest. Marcus could feel the temperature dropping, could feel the way Kira began to shiver slightly despite her tactical jacket. His wolf pushed forward with the urge to offer body heat, to wrap around her and keep her warm the way mates were supposed to do. Instead, he pulled a thermal blanket from his pack and handed it to her. "Here." Kira took it with surprise. "Thanks." She wrapped it around her shoulders, and Marcus caught her scent strengthening as her body warmed. The mate bond surged in response, his wolf practically howling with need. This was going to be a long 3 days, but somewhere in the darkness ahead, Fenris's wolves were watching Marcus's territory. And if Kira was right about their interest in her family, then that observation post was not just about tactical intelligence. It was about her, which meant Marcus needed to know what Fenris knew, needed to understand why a rival alpha was interested in the human daughter of a disgraced beta, needed to solve the mystery before it got Kira killed. Because mate bond or not, oath or not, Marcus was keeping her alive. Even if it meant going to war with an alpha he had once called mentor, even if it meant defying his own counsel, even if it meant accepting that his mate might never be pack, might never shift, might never feel the bond that was currently tearing him apart from the inside. She was his, and he protected what was his. That was alpha law. That was mate law. That was the only law that mattered. Kira Stone might not know it yet, but she was about to learn what it meant when an alpha decided you belonged to him. And there was no force in this world, or any other, that would change his mind. The 3 days of observation passed in a tension that had nothing to do with Fenris's wolves and everything to do with the mate bond that Marcus could feel tightening like a noose around his control. Kira tracked guard rotations with professional efficiency, documented patterns, identified weak points in the observation post defenses. But every hour they spent in that hide together, every moment her scent surrounded him in the enclosed space, every accidental brush of skin when she handed him the field glasses made Marcus's wolf claw harder at the restraints he had built over 4 decades of alpha discipline. By the 3rd night, his canines were aching to extend, his eyes kept flashing wolf gold when she was not looking, and the urge to pin her against the nearest tree and mark her throat was becoming a physical pain he could barely breathe through. Kira, for her part, seemed oblivious, or maybe she was just better at hiding her reactions. But Marcus caught the way her pulse jumped when he moved close, caught the way her pupils dilated when their hands touched, caught the subtle shift in her scent when twilight fell, and they were forced into proximity that felt far too intimate for alpha and contract employee. She felt something. Maybe not the mate bond, not yet, but attraction, interest, the pull that happened when 2 people recognized potential in each other, even if they did not understand why. Marcus clung to that, because if she felt even a fraction of what he felt, then maybe when the truth came out, she would not run. On the morning of the 4th day, they packed up the hide and began the trek back to Black Ridge territory. Kira had everything Marcus needed: guard schedules, shift patterns, supply routes, weak points, enough intelligence to plan a strike that would cripple Fenris's ability to monitor pack movements. But as they crossed back into packlands, Marcus's wolf began to growl with unease. Something was wrong. The forest felt different, smelled different, and when they reached the first settlement outpost, he understood why. Ronan was waiting with a grim expression and news that made Marcus's blood run cold. "We had a breach last night. 3 of Fenris's wolves crossed the border. They were not raiding, they were searching." "For what?" Ronan's one good eye slid to Kira. "For her." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Kira's hand moved instinctively to her knife, her body tensing with the defensive posture of someone who had spent too many years being hunted. "Did you catch them?" Marcus asked, his voice dropping to the alpha rumble that preceded violence. 2. The 3rd escaped back across the border, but not before one of them talked. And they were sent to confirm her scent, to verify she was on packlands. Fenris is not looking for generic information anymore. He is looking specifically for Kira Stone. "Why? What does he want with me?" Kira's voice was steady, but Marcus could smell the fear underneath, sharp and acidic. "That is what we need to find out." Marcus turned to her, his alpha instinct screaming at him to grab her and lock her somewhere safe where no rival alpha could ever touch her. But he forced himself to keep his voice calm, his posture non-threatening. "We are taking you to the pack healer. Now." "I do not need a healer. I am fine." "This is not a request." Marcus let just enough alpha command leak into his voice that her body responded before her mind could argue, her muscles going tense with the instinctive submission that humans raised near packs learned without even realizing it. "If Fenris is hunting you specifically, there is a reason, and we are going to find out what it is before he makes another move." Kira looked like she wanted to argue, but something in Marcus's expression must have convinced her that this was not negotiable. She nodded once, sharp and military. "Fine, lead the way." The pack healer lived in a den carved into the side of Black Ridge Mountain, a space that smelled of herbs and old magic and the kind of power that came from wolves who had lived through more alpha regimes than anyone cared to count. Elena Darkwood was ancient by pack standards, her human form weathered to paper-thin skin over bird bones. But her wolf was still strong enough that no alpha in 3 generations had dared challenge her authority over matters of health and bloodlines. She took one look at Kira, and her eyes, milky with age, sharpened with interest. "Sarah's daughter." Elena's voice was dry as autumn leaves. "I wondered when you would finally bring her to me, Marcus Iron." "You knew she was back?" I know everything that happens in this territory. Elena gestured to a low bench. Sit, child. Let me see what you are carrying. Kira sat, her posture defensive. I am not carrying anything. We shall see. Elena placed gnarled hands on Kira's shoulders and closed her eyes. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the healer's eyes snapped open, blazing with a light that had nothing to do with age. Oh, this is dangerous. What is? Marcus stepped forward, his wolf surging with protective instinct. She carries the bloodline of Ash. Elena's hands trembled as she pulled them away from Kira. The line thought extinct 200 years ago, but it is here, dormant but alive, sealed with magic so old I barely recognize the weaving. What are you talking about? Kira stood abruptly, fear plain on her face now. What bloodline? Your mother never told you what you are. Elena turned to Marcus. Did Sarah tell you? She said she needed me to protect her daughter. She did not say why. She did not say because speaking the words would have drawn attention from those who hunt this power. Elena moved to a shelf lined with ancient texts bound in leather that predated modern times. The bloodline of Ash was the first wolf line, the original pack, before territories, before councils, before alphas ruled by strength alone. They were wolves who carried magic in their blood, who could shift the balance of power with nothing more than will and sacrifice. That is a myth, Ronan said from the doorway. Old pack stories told to scare pups. All myths have truth at their core. Elena pulled down a tome so old the pages cracked when she opened it. The bloodline of Ash was real, and they were hunted to extinction because their power could not be controlled, could not be dominated. Every alpha who tried to claim that power died. Every pack that harbored them fell. So the Council of Old decided they were too dangerous to exist. They killed every last one. She looked at Kira, her expression somber, or so they thought. My mother was human, Kira said, her voice shaking now. I am human. I cannot shift. I have never shifted. Because the bloodline is sealed. Your mother had it sealed when you were born. Probably paid a dark magic worker to weave the binding so deep you would never know what you were. Never trigger the awakening. Never become the weapon that others would try to use. Weapon? Marcus stepped closer to Kira, his body instinctively moving between her and any threat, even though the threat was information, not physical. What kind of weapon? The kind that can kill every wolf in a 50-mile radius if activated properly. The kind that Fenris Shadowmow has been searching for since he went rogue 20 years ago. Elena closed the book with a thud that sounded like a coffin lid. He was part of the Council Research Division that tried to recreate the bloodline of Ash power for military use. When the project was shut down for ethical violations, he took his research and disappeared. And apparently he has spent the last 2 decades hunting down the one bloodline carrier that escaped the original purge. This is insane. Kira backed toward the door, her eyes wide with panic that Marcus could smell sharp and overwhelming. I am not a weapon. I am not even a wolf. Not yet. But the seal is weakening. Elena's gaze was pitying. I can feel it cracking. Something has triggered the awakening. Give it time, and your wolf will emerge. And when it does, anyone with knowledge of the old magic can use you to destroy entire packs. Then we remove the seal, Marcus said, his mind already calculating tactics and defenses. We bring her wolf forward in a controlled environment, and she learns to manage the power before Fenris can try to take it. You cannot remove a seal that deep without killing her. The binding is woven into her DNA. Rip it out and you rip out her life force with it. Then what do? You protect her. You keep her away from anyone who might try to activate the power. And you pray that when her wolf does emerge, it recognizes its true mate before Fenris gets close enough to try a forced claim. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. True mate. Elena knew. Of course she knew. Healers always knew. Kira looked between them, confusion mixing with her fear. What does that mean? True mate? It means, Elena said gently, that you are not as human as you think, child. And your wolf has already chosen who it wants to bond with. You just have not felt it yet. Kira's eyes found Marcus's. For a long moment they stared at each other, and Marcus watched understanding dawn slowly across her face. Watched her piece together the intensity of his attention, the protectiveness, the way his body always angled toward hers like a compass finding north. No, she whispered, that is not possible. I am human. Your wolf disagrees. Elena moved to a cabinet and began mixing something in a stone bowl. The awakening has already begun. Your body is changing, preparing for the first shift. It will happen soon. Days, maybe a week at most. And when it does, the mate bond will lock into place. There will be no denying it then. I need air! Kira turned and fled the den, her footsteps echoing in the stone passage. Marcus moved to follow, but Elena's hand on his arm stopped him. Let her process, she said quietly. This is a lot for someone who thought they were human their entire life. Fenris will not give her time to process. Then you will have to give it to her. Because if you push too hard, if you try to force the mate bond before she is ready, her wolf will reject you, and a rejected mate bond will kill you both. Marcus closed his eyes, fighting the urge to howl with frustration. How do I protect her if she will not let me close? You already are close. Your scent is all over her. Your wolf has marked her as yours in every way except the physical bite. She feels it even if she does not understand it. Elena mixed her herbs with practiced efficiency. Give her tonight. Let her think. Let her come to terms with what she is. Tomorrow, you can start teaching her how to be wolf. And if Fenris attacks before then you do what alphas do. You fight. And you win. Because the alternative is watching your mate fall into the hands of a wolf who will use her as a weapon and throw away the shell when he is done. The image made Marcus's wolf snarl with rage. No, that would never happen. He would tear apart every wolf in Fenris's pack before he let anyone touch Kira. Would burn down forests and territories and break every law of pack politics if that was what it took to keep her safe. She was his mate, and no one took what belonged to an alpha. He found Kira an hour later at the edge of Packlands, sitting on a fallen log and staring out at the forest like it held answers she desperately needed. Her scent was calmer now. The sharp panic faded to something heavier. Grief, maybe, or acceptance of a future she had never wanted. Marcus approached slowly, giving her time to hear him coming. She did not run, did not tell him to leave, just sat there as he settled onto the log beside her, close enough to feel her body heat, but not touching. They sat in silence for a long time. Then Kira spoke, her voice quiet. My mother knew what I was. All this time she knew, and she never told me. She was protecting you. If you did not know, you could not accidentally reveal yourself to the wrong people. She died keeping this secret. Yes. And now I'm supposed to what? Accept that I'm some kind of ancient weapon? That I have a wolf inside me that is going to tear its way out whether I want it to or not? You are not a weapon. Marcus kept his voice steady, pouring certainty into every word. You are a wolf. My wolf. And whatever power you carry, we will figure out how to control it together. Your wolf? Kira repeated, and there was something almost bitter in her tone. The mate bond thing. Yes, I do not feel anything. Not yet, but you will. How do you know? Because I feel it. Marcus turned to look at her, let her see the truth in his eyes. I have felt it since the moment I caught your scent at your mother's funeral. My wolf recognized you as mate, and it has been driving me insane every second since, trying to control the need to claim you, to mark you, to make it absolutely clear to every wolf in these territories that you belong to me. Kira's breath caught. That is why you offered me the contract, not because you need a tracker. I do need a tracker. But yes, the primary reason was to get you into my territory where I could protect you, where I could be close enough to ensure no other wolf tried to claim what is mine. I am not yours. Yes, you are. You just do not know it yet. The possessiveness in his voice should have made her angry, should have made her defensive. Instead, Kira shivered, and Marcus caught the subtle shift in her scent. Arousal, interest, the beginning of recognition that her body understood, even if her mind was fighting it. This is insane, she whispered. Yes. You are an alpha. I am a human, was human, whatever. You are my mate. Everything else is just details. Kira laughed, short and sharp. Details. Right. Like the fact that a rival alpha wants to use me as a weapon of mass destruction. Like the fact that I have a wolf inside me that is apparently going to claw its way out any day now. Like the fact that you are sitting here telling me I belong to you, and some primal part of me wants to believe you. The last part made Marcus's wolf surge forward with triumph. She felt it. Maybe not the full bond yet, but the pull, the attraction, the beginning of recognition. He moved slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. Reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers barely brushing her skin. But even that light touch sent electricity through them both. Kira's eyes widened, her pupils dilating as her body responded to his proximity. "When your wolf emerges," Marcus said quietly, "it will recognize me immediately. Will know me as mate beyond any doubt. Until then, all I am asking is that you trust me enough to let me protect you. Let me teach you what you need to know to survive the shift. Let me stand between you and Fenris until we figure out how to neutralize the power in your blood. And after that, when the threat is over, after that, you decide. If you want to walk away, I will not stop you." The lie tasted like ash, but Marcus forced himself to say it, because pushing her now would only drive her away faster. "The mate bond is your choice. Always." Kira studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Okay, I will stay. I will let you teach me about wolves, about whatever is happening inside me. But I am not promising anything beyond that." "Fair enough." It was not fair. It was torture. But it was a start. And as long as Kira stayed in his territory, stayed close enough that he could protect her, Marcus would take whatever she was willing to give. Even if it meant controlling the alpha instinct that screamed at him to pin her down right now and mark her throat until there was no question who she belonged to. Patience, control, two things being tested to their absolute limit. But Marcus had spent 20 years as alpha. He could handle a few more days. He hoped. The next week passed in a blur of training and tension that built like a storm waiting to break. Marcus taught Kira the basics of pack dynamics, of territory law, of the hierarchy that governed wolf society. She learned quickly, her military background translating easily to pack structure. She could already spot dominance challenges, could read body language that spoke volumes without words, could move through pack gatherings without triggering territorial responses. But the wolf inside her remained dormant, sealed, waiting. Fenris did not wait. On the 8th day of Kira's residence in pack territory, his wolves attacked the eastern border in a coordinated strike that spoke of military training and tactical precision. 20 wolves hit 3 different settlements simultaneously, overwhelming the local defenders before Marcus could mobilize the main pack. They killed 5 pack members, injured 12 more, and left a message carved into the wall of the largest settlement's meeting hall. "Send her to me or I burn your territory until nothing remains but ash." Marcus stood in front of that message, his wolf howling for blood, his hands clenched so tight his claws extended and drew blood from his palms. Ronan stood beside him, equally furious, equally helpless against an enemy that would not engage in honorable combat. "He is not going to stop," his beta said quietly. "Every day she remains here, more pack members die. Then we make sure he cannot reach her. You cannot keep her locked away forever. And the pack is starting to question why you are risking so many lives for one female who is not even pack." "She is my mate." The words came out as a snarl, alpha command backing them with force that made every wolf in hearing range drop their eyes in submission. "Anyone who questions my decisions on this can challenge me for alpha position. Otherwise, they follow my orders." Ronan did not drop his eyes. He had earned the right to meet his alpha's gaze directly. "I am not questioning you. I am telling you what the others are thinking. The pack will follow you into hell, Marcus, but they need to understand why we are going. Then I will tell them." The pack gathering that night was tense with unspoken questions and barely suppressed fear. Wolves who had lost friends in the border attacks. Wolves who had children in the settlements Fenris threatened. Wolves who were loyal to their alpha, but starting to wonder if that loyalty was going to get them killed. Marcus stood before them, Kira at his side, and did something he had never done in 20 years as alpha. He told them the truth, about the bloodline of Ash, about the weapon Fenris was hunting, about the seal that made Kira appear human but hid the most powerful wolf bloodline ever to exist, about the mate bond that meant refusing Fenris's demands was not political calculation but biological imperative. When he finished, the gathered pack was silent. Then slowly Ronan stepped forward. "I stand with my alpha," he said, his voice carrying across the clearing. "If Marcus says she is mate, then she is pack, and we protect pack." One by one, other wolves stepped forward. Young Asher, barely into his 3rd year as a full wolf. Elena, the ancient healer, the settlement leaders, the warriors, the mothers with pups who had everything to lose. "We stand with our alpha," they said. "We protect the mate." Not all of them stepped forward. Marcus noted the ones who remained back, who kept their eyes down, who radiated doubt and fear. Among them was Senna Cross, A female wolf Marcus had courted years ago before deciding political alliances were not worth the emotional complications. She stood with her arms crossed, her expression carefully neutral. But Marcus caught the scent of anger and something darker underneath: jealousy, betrayal. The bitter rage of a female who had expected to one day be Luna and now watched that position go to an outsider. He made a note to keep Senna under watch. Jealous wolves did unpredictable things, dangerous things. But for now, the pack had spoken. They would stand and fight for Kira, would protect her until her wolf emerged and she could protect herself. It was enough. It had to be. That night, Marcus found Kira standing on the balcony of the guest den he had assigned her, staring out at the forest with an expression he could not quite read. He approached quietly, but she sensed him anyway. Her body tensed, then relaxed as she recognized his scent. "You did not have to tell them," she said softly, "about the mate bond." "Yes, I did. They deserve to know why their alpha is asking them to die for someone who is not officially pack. And now they will expect me to be your Luna, to take that position, to fulfill the mate bond. Eventually, yes. What if I cannot? What if my wolf never emerges? What if the seal never breaks? Then we figure it out." Marcus stepped closer, standing beside her at the railing. "But I do not think that is going to be a problem." "Why not?" "Because I can smell the change on you. Your scent is shifting, getting stronger, more wolf. The seal is breaking whether we want it to or not." Kira closed her eyes, her hands gripping the railing tight enough that her knuckles went white. "I am scared." "I know. Not of the shift. Not really. I am scared of losing myself, of becoming something I cannot control, of hurting people because I do not know my own strength." "You will not hurt anyone. I will teach you control." "How can you be so sure?" "Because," Marcus said, moving closer still, until his body heat warmed her side, until his scent surrounded her in a way that made his wolf rumble with satisfaction. "I have watched you for days now. I have seen how careful you are, how controlled. You spent 15 years in military service learning discipline. That does not disappear just because you have a wolf. If anything, it makes you more dangerous, more capable, or more destructive. Not with me teaching you." Kira turned to look at him, and they were close enough now that Marcus could count the flecks of gold in her dark eyes, could see the way her pulse beat in her throat, the way her breathing changed when he was near, could smell the arousal that she probably did not even recognize yet, but his wolf recognized instantly. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Really, mate bond aside, why risk your pack for me?" Marcus reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her face in his hand. She did not pull away, just stood there breathing fast, staring at him with something like wonder and terror mixed together. "Because the moment I caught your scent," his voice dropped to something rough and raw, something that was more wolf than man, "my entire world shifted. Everything I thought I knew about leadership and duty and pack politics became irrelevant. All that mattered was keeping you safe, making you mine, protecting you from anything and anyone who tried to hurt you. That is what mate bonds do. They rewire your priorities until there is only one truth that matters. You are mine, and I will burn down the world before I let anyone take you from me." Kira's breath hitched. Her eyes were wide, dilated, her body swaying toward his like a compass finding north. For a moment, Marcus thought she might kiss him, thought she might close the distance and let the bond pull them together the way it was screaming to do. But then she stepped back, breaking the contact, and the loss of her heat was like a physical wound. "I need time," she said, her voice shaking. "I need to figure out who I am before I can figure out what we are." Marcus forced himself to nod, forced himself to respect the boundary, even though his wolf was howling in protest. "I will wait, as long as you need." It was a lie. He could not wait much longer. The mate bond was eating him alive from the inside, but he would try. For her. Because she was worth waiting for, worth dying for, worth breaking every rule he had ever lived by. She was his mate, and someday soon, she would understand what that meant. The shift happened 3 days later, violent and unexpected, and in the absolute worst possible moment. They were patrolling the eastern border, Marcus and Kira with a team of 5 warriors, checking the defensive lines that Fenris had been testing with increasing aggression. The forest was quiet. Too quiet. Marcus's wolf was on edge, hackles raised, sensing something wrong in the stillness. Then the ambush exploded around them. 20 of Fenris's wolves bursting from concealment, coordinated and lethal. The fight erupted in seconds, fur and fangs and blood spraying across fallen leaves. Marcus shifted instantly, his massive black wolf tearing into the nearest enemy with practiced efficiency. His pack warriors fought with the discipline he had drilled into them, holding formation, protecting each other's flanks. But one wolf broke through the line, massive and scarred and heading straight for Kira with the single-minded focus of a predator who had found his target. Kira drew her knife, fell into defensive stance, prepared to fight as a human against a creature that outweighed her by 100 pounds of muscle and fury. The wolf lunged and she dodged, blade flashing, drawing blood from its shoulder. But it was not enough. The wolf was faster, stronger, driven by orders to capture, not kill. It hit her from the side, driving her into the ground, jaws snapping toward her throat, and something inside Kira broke. Pain exploded through her body, bones cracking and reforming, skin splitting to make way for fur. She screamed, and the sound transformed mid-cry into a howl that was pure wolf, pure power, pure rage at being trapped and hunted and treated like prey. Her wolf was smaller than Marcus's, but no less fierce. Brown and gray fur with strange black markings along her spine that looked almost like the ash after fire. Her eyes blazed gold, not the normal amber of pack wolves, but something brighter, something that glowed with ancient power that predated modern territories. The enemy wolf stumbled back, confused by the sudden shift. That moment of hesitation was all Kira needed. Her wolf lunged, all teeth and fury, going for the throat with an instinct that came from bloodlines older than pack law. The enemy wolf went down, dying before it understood what had killed it. Then Kira's wolf turned toward the rest of the fight, toward the pack members struggling against superior numbers. And something happened that made every wolf on both sides freeze in shock. Her fur began to glow. The black markings on her spine lit with silver fire, spreading outward in patterns that looked like ancient symbols. Power rolled off her in waves that made the air shimmer, made every wolf present feel the weight of something vast and terrible waking after centuries of sleep. The enemy wolves broke, turned and ran, abandoning the fight, fleeing from power they recognized even if they did not understand it. Marcus's pack warriors stood frozen, staring at Kira's glowing wolf with expressions that mixed awe and fear. Then the glow faded. Kira's wolf collapsed, sides heaving, body shaking with exhaustion from a shift that should have been gradual but had been forced by survival need. Marcus shifted back to human form, ignoring his own injuries, and ran to her side. "Easy," he said softly, placing a hand on her fur. "Easy now. You are safe. The danger is past." Kira's wolf whimpered, a sound of confusion and pain. Her eyes found his, gold meeting storm gray, and Marcus felt the mate bond slam into place with a force that drove him to his knees. Complete. Undeniable. His wolf recognizing her wolf recognizing his, the connection locking together like pieces of a puzzle that had been separated for too long. "Mine," his wolf growled, "mate, mine." And for the first time he felt Kira's wolf respond with the same certainty. "Yours," her wolf acknowledged. "Mate, yours." The bond was complete. Now came the hard part, teaching her how to be wolf while the world around them prepared for war. The pack healer confirmed what Marcus already knew. Kira's first shift had been violent, forced by life or death need, and her wolf was strong, incredibly strong. The kind of power that came with the bloodline of Ash, the kind that could not be suppressed or controlled by normal means. Which meant Fenris would be coming for her with everything he had. They had maybe days before the full assault, a week if they were lucky. Marcus used that time to teach Kira everything she needed to know about being wolf, how to shift at will instead of waiting for necessity, how to hunt, to fight, to move through the forest with the enhanced senses that let her hear heartbeats from 100 yards and scent individual wolves by name. But more than that, he taught her about the mate bond, about what it meant that their wolves had recognized each other, about the claiming that would need to happen eventually, the bite that would mark her as his and him as hers in a way that every wolf would recognize instantly. And Kira, for the first time since he had met her, stopped running from the truth. "I feel it now," she told him one night after training. Her wolf was sprawled beside his in a clearing, both of them exhausted from a day of tactical drills. "The bond. It is like a thread connecting us. I can feel your emotions, sense when you are near, know instinctively when you are in danger or hurt or angry." Marcus's wolf rumbled approval. "That is how it is supposed to be. It is terrifying, knowing that someone else has this much access to what I feel, this much power over me. I do not have power over you. The bond goes both ways. You feel what I feel, which means you know I would die before I let anyone hurt you." Kira's wolf was quiet for a long moment. Then she shifted to human form, kneeling naked in the leaves without shame because wolves did not care about nudity the way humans did. Marcus shifted too, his body responding to her proximity with the need that had been building for weeks now. "I want to understand," she said, "about the claiming, about what it means." Marcus forced himself to breathe steadily, to control the surge of possessive hunger that her words triggered. "The claiming is physical. A bite during intimate joining that marks the mate bond is complete. It mixes scent, mixes blood, creates a permanent connection that lets other wolves know you are taken. And if we do not claim, if we just leave the bond as it is, then you will always feel incomplete. The bond will pull at you, make you restless, drive you to seek the connection your wolf knows it needs. Plus, Kira," his voice dropped to something rough, "any unmated male wolf who crosses your path will try to court you, try to challenge me for the right to claim you. The bond might be there, but without the bite, other wolves will not recognize it, will not respect it. So you are saying we have to?" "I am saying," Marcus closed the distance between them, slow enough that she could stop him if she wanted, "that completing the claim is the natural conclusion of the mate bond, but only when you are ready, only when you want it." "And if I want it now?" The question made his wolf surge forward with feral hunger. "Do not tease me about this." "I am not teasing." Kira met his eyes, her expression serious. "I spent weeks fighting this, fighting you, fighting the idea that I could be anything other than human. But my wolf knows what it wants, and for the first time in my life, I am not running from what scares me. So I am asking, if I said yes, if I said I wanted the bond completed, would you claim me tonight?" Marcus was on her before she finished the sentence, pressing her down into the leaves, his body covering hers, his mouth finding hers in a kiss that was as much wolf as human, dominant and demanding, and claiming her with lips and tongue and the low growl that vibrated through his chest. Kira responded with equal hunger, her hands fisting in his hair, her body arching against his, her wolf rising to meet his wolf with the kind of certainty that could not be questioned. "Are you sure?" he managed to ask when he pulled back enough to breathe. "Once this is done, it cannot be undone. You will be mine, permanently, completely." "I know." Her smile was fierce. "And you will be mine. Fair trade, Alpha." "Fair trade," he agreed. And then there were no more words, just hands and heat and the primal dance of mates finally coming together the way nature intended. Marcus took his time, built the pleasure slowly despite the feral need clawing at his control, kissed his way down her throat, her collarbone, the valley between her breasts, mapped her body with hands that shook from the restraint it took not to just pin her down and take what his wolf howled for. Kira was not passive. She touched him back, explored the scars on his shoulders and chest, learned the places that made him growl with pleasure. When he finally settled between her thighs, when he finally lined himself up and began to push inside with agonizing slowness, she wrapped her legs around his hips and pulled him deeper, demanding more, demanding everything. The joining was fierce and primal and perfect. They moved together with the instinct of wolves who knew how to fight and hunt and claim what was theirs. And when the pleasure built to the breaking point, when Marcus felt his control shattering, he pulled back just enough to see her eyes. "Now?" he asked, his voice barely human. "Now," she agreed. He struck fast, his canines extending, sinking into the junction of her neck and shoulder where the claiming bite traditionally went. The taste of her blood on his tongue was sweet and wild and undeniably right. Kira cried out, not in pain but in pleasure, her own canines extending as she bit him in return, marking him as hers in the moment he marked her as his. The mate bond locked into place with a force that whited out the world. Power surged through them both, her wolf and his wolf becoming one in a way that transcended physical joining. Marcus felt Kira's emotions flooding through the bond, felt her certainty and her acceptance and her wolf's feral satisfaction at finally being claimed by the alpha it had chosen. And underneath it all, something else. Power. ancient and vast and waking fully for the first time in 200 years. The bloodline of Ash responding to the completed mate bond, recognizing the strength of the wolf who had claimed its carrier. The power flowed from Kira into Marcus, seeking a stronger vessel, seeking someone who could control it without being consumed. His wolf accepted the burden without hesitation, absorbed the ancient magic, contained it within alpha strength that had been forged over decades of leadership. When the transfer was complete, when the power finally settled, they collapsed together in the leaves, breathing hard, bodies still joined, the claiming marks on their throats already healing, but leaving scars that would last forever. "You feel that?" Kira whispered against his shoulder. Marcus nodded, not trusting himself to speak yet. He could feel the power now, living inside him like a second wolf, controlled but present, dangerous but contained. The weapon Fenris had been hunting was now bound to an alpha who would die before he used it for destruction. "What does it mean?" she asked. "It means," Marcus pulled back enough to look at her, "means that you are safe now. The power cannot be taken from you because it no longer lives in you alone. It lives in us, in the mate bond, and no wolf alive is strong enough to break a completed bond. So Fenris cannot use me anymore?" "No, but he can try to kill us both out of spite." "Let him try." Kira's smile was all wolf. "We will be ready." They stayed in the clearing for hours after, naked and tangled together, learning the new reality of the mate bond. Marcus could feel her contentment through the connection, could sense her wolf curled around his wolf in a way that felt like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. But the peace could not last, because Fenris was not going to accept defeat gracefully. The betrayal came 2 nights later, delivered by the one wolf Marcus had been watching, but not watching closely enough. Senna Cross walked into his den with information she claimed came from a scout. But the scent on her was wrong, too neutral, too carefully cleaned. And when Marcus pushed, when he demanded to know where she had really been, the truth came out in a rush of defensive anger. She had been meeting with Fenris, trading information for promises, believing that if she helped him eliminate Kira, Marcus would turn to her once his mate was dead, that the bond would break and he would be free to choose again. It was the logic of a wolf blinded by jealousy, the kind of twisted reasoning that ignored everything about how mate bonds actually worked. Marcus had her restrained before she could run, called a pack tribunal before she could lie her way out of the charges. The pack gathered in the Great Hall, witnesses to another trial, another betrayal. But this time, Marcus felt no hesitation about the verdict. "You sold out your pack for jealousy," he said, his alpha voice carrying across the hall. "Endangered your alpha's mate for personal gain. By pack law, that is treason. The punishment is death." "Wait!" Senna pleaded, her eyes finding Kira in the crowd. "Please, tell him to show mercy." And to Marcus's surprise, Kira stepped forward. "She is right," Kira said, "but not about mercy." She turned to the assembled pack. "If we kill her, she becomes a martyr to those who doubt this bond, who question whether a mate is worth the cost we have paid. But if we exile her, if we let her live with the consequences of her choices, she becomes a warning, a reminder that betraying pack trust costs you everything but your life." The pack murmured agreement. Ronan nodded slowly. Even the most bloodthirsty warriors seemed to accept the logic. Marcus looked at his mate, felt the certainty through the bond, and made his decision. "Exile," he pronounced. "Senna Cross, you are cast out from Black Ridge Pack. You will be escorted to the border with nothing but the clothes you wear. If you ever return, the death sentence will be carried out immediately. Do you understand?" Senna understood, and as they led her away, Marcus watched Kira handle the pack politics with the skill of a born Luna. She had just turned an enemy into an object lesson without spilling pack blood, had shown mercy without showing weakness. His wolf rumbled with pride. His mate was going to make an excellent Luna. But first, they had to survive the war that was coming. Fenris attacked 3 days after Senna's exile, and he brought every wolf he could muster. Nearly 200 rogues and mercenaries, gathered from territories across the continent, promised territory and power and the chance to be part of the pack that dominated the northern lands. The siege began at dawn, wolves streaming out of the forest in coordinated waves, not trying to breach the main den complex yet, just testing, probing, looking for weak points and defenses that Marcus had spent weeks reinforcing. The first day cost them 20 pack members, the second day, 30 more. By the third day, Marcus was staring at casualty reports that said they were bleeding out faster than they could regenerate. Fenris had the numbers, had the resources, and he was willing to throw bodies at the problem until Black Ridge fell. "We cannot hold like this," Ronan said during a war council on the fourth night. "We need to change the tactical picture." Marcus knew what his beta was really asking. The power, the bloodline of ash weapon that now lived in Marcus's control. He could activate it, could kill every wolf in Fenris's army in one massive strike. All it would cost was his humanity, and possibly his mate's life if the ancient magic rebounded on the bond. "No," he said flatly. "We do not become the monsters we are fighting." "Then what do? We break the siege, we go on offensive." "With what forces?" "We are down to 70 effectives. Then we make 70 wolves fight like 200. It was Kira who proposed the solution. A night raid on Fenris's command position. Decapitation strike. Kill the Alpha, the army falls apart. It was suicidal. It was tactically insane. It was exactly the kind of move that Kira would have been court-martialed for in the human military. It was also their best chance. Marcus led the strike team personally. 10 wolves, including himself and Kira. They shifted and moved through enemy territory like ghosts, using every trick Marcus had learned in 20 years of alpha combat and every tactical insight Kira had earned in 15 years of military service. They reached Fenris's command den an hour before dawn, killed the guards silently, breached the perimeter before the alarm could be raised. Fenris was waiting. Of course he was. He had probably planned for this exact scenario. Wanted Marcus to come to him, wanted the personal confrontation that would let him prove once and for all who was the stronger alpha. They fought in wolf form, massive black wolf against scarred gray. 2 alphas who had once been mentor and student. 2 wolves who understood each other's tactics because they had been forged in the same fire. The battle was brutal. Neither gave quarter. Both landed killing blows that would have dropped lesser wolves. Blood sprayed across the den floor. Bones cracked and healed and broke again. And then Fenris made his mistake. He went for Kira, tried to use her as leverage, tried to force Marcus to submit by threatening his mate. But what Fenris did not understand was that Kira was not some delicate Luna who needed protecting. She was a wolf who had survived military combat and a shift that should have killed her and the awakening of power that would have broken weaker minds. She met Fenris's charge head-on, smaller but faster, using his momentum against him, going for the throat with precision that came from human tactical training combined with wolf instinct. Her teeth found his jugular and tore, and Fenris went down bleeding out faster than even alpha healing could compensate for. The army broke when their alpha fell, scattered into the forest like leaves before a storm. Some would return to their home territories, others would go rogue. But none would continue this fight. Black Ridge had survived, barely, but survived. The aftermath took weeks. Funerals for the fallen, medical treatment for the wounded, rebuilding of structures that had been destroyed in the siege. The pack was battered but not broken, bloodied but still standing. And in the center of it all, Marcus and Kira, Alpha and Luna, building something new from the ashes of what had been. The official claiming ceremony happened a month after the siege ended, under the full moon with the entire pack as witnesses. Marcus had wanted to give Kira time to settle into her role, time to learn pack politics and territorial law without the pressure of public claiming. But on the night of the full moon, she came to him wearing the traditional Luna robes and a smile that said she was ready. The ceremony was ancient, words spoken in a language that predated modern pack structure. The pack healer presided, binding their hands with cord woven from sacred plants, mixing their blood in a ceremonial bowl that had been used for alpha bindings for 300 years. When the ritual words were done, Marcus pulled Kira close and kissed her in front of the assembled pack, making it absolutely clear that this female was his mate, his Luna, his equal in all the ways that mattered. The pack howled their approval, shifting to wolf form and singing to the moon in celebration of a bond that had cost them dearly but had also proven that some things were worth fighting for. Later that night, alone in their private den, Kira traced the claiming scar on Marcus's throat and smiled. "Worth it?" she asked. "Every second, every battle, every loss." He covered her hand with his. "Having you here makes everything worth it. Even giving up the power?" She could feel it through the bond, the ancient magic that Marcus carried now. Controlled but not used, contained but not destroyed. Especially that, The power is a tool, and tools are only as good or evil as the person wielding them. As long as I am alive, it will never be used for destruction. And when you die, then it passes to our heir, to the next alpha who carries our bloodline." She paused, which raises an interesting question. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Oh? Do you want pups?" "Because the pack is starting to ask, and I have no idea what to tell them." He pulled her closer, nuzzling her throat where his claim mark stood out against her skin. "I want whatever you want. If that is pups, we make pups. If that is building pack strength and Luna leadership first, we wait. There is no timeline on this." "Good, because I'm still figuring out how to be a wolf and a Luna. Adding mother to that list feels like asking for chaos." "Then we wait." Marcus kissed her softly. "We have time. Centuries, maybe, if we are lucky. The mate bond extends life, makes us stronger, gives us years that unmated wolves do not get." "Centuries with you," Kira mused. "I am either very lucky or very cursed." "Definitely lucky," he growled against her skin, "because you are stuck with me now. No escape, no running. You are mine forever." "And you are mine, fair trade, Alpha." "The fairest." They stayed like that for a long time, tangled together in the safety of their den, the mate bond humming between them with contentment and certainty, and the promise of a future they had both fought hard to claim. Outside, the pack settled into their dens, secure in the knowledge that their Alpha and Luna were bonded, that the territory was protected, that the threat had been neutralized. And in the forest beyond Packlands, whispers began to spread about the Alpha who carried ancient power, about the Luna with the bloodline of ash, about the pack that had survived impossible odds because two wolves decided that some bonds were worth dying for. The other packs watched and waited and wondered if Black Ridge would become the dominant territory now that they possessed power beyond any Alpha's strength. But Marcus did not care about dominance, did not care about territorial expansion or political maneuvering, or whether the council approved of his choices. He cared about the wolf sleeping beside him, her breath even and peaceful, her presence in his mind through the bond a constant reminder that he had found what most Alphas spent their entire lives searching for. A mate, a partner, an equal, and that was worth more than all the territory and power in the world. 6 months later, word reached them that the council had issued a formal pardon for Sarah Stone. Her name was cleared, her service recognized, her sacrifice acknowledged as the act of a mother protecting her daughter rather than a traitor selling out her pack. Kira stood before her mother's memorial in the sacred burial grounds and placed a hand on the stone that bore Sarah's name and new designation, Beta, Hero, Mother. "Thank you," Kira whispered, "for protecting me, for giving me a chance to find this life. I hope I am making you proud." Marcus stood behind her, his hand resting on her shoulder. "She is proud. I am certain of it." They stood there for a long time, paying respects to the wolf who had set all of this in motion, who had sealed her daughter's power and died protecting the secret, who had extracted a promise from an Alpha that he would protect what she left behind. Marcus had kept that promise, and in keeping it, had found everything he never knew he needed. As they walked back toward the main den complex, Kira laced her fingers through his. "What do you think comes next?" she asked. "After all this, after the war and the claiming and rebuilding, what is left?" "Everything," Marcus replied, squeezing her hand. "We have a pack to lead, territories to protect, and based on the way Ronan has been eyeing the young female from the western border, probably a mating ceremony to plan in the near future." "You think Ronan found his mate?" "I think my Beta has been sneaking off to the western territory every chance he gets, which either means he is planning a border expansion or he has found something worth courting." "Good for him," Kira smiled. "Everyone deserves to find what we found." "Not everyone gets that lucky." "No. But we can give them a pack where they feel safe enough to try, where bonds are honored and mates are protected, and ancient powers are used for defense instead of destruction." "That is a good goal for a Luna." "For an Alpha and Luna," she corrected. "We lead together now." "Together," Marcus agreed, "and forever." The future stretched out before them, uncertain and dangerous and full of challenges that neither could predict. But they would face it as they had faced everything else, together, as mates, as partners, as Alpha and Luna of a pack that had been forged in blood and fire, and the kind of bonds that could not be broken by any force in this world or the next. And in a world where power was currency and strength was survival, they had found something more valuable than either. They had found each other, and that was worth everything.